Greetings and welcome, I'm Ash and this is my early access review of the Hive, a narrative-driven real-time strategy game with some RPG elements mixed in that puts you in command of a young alien hive and tasks you with leading hordes of insectoid creatures toward their grand destiny in a ravaged world. It is currently in early access and as such many features are unfinished, unpolished or simply missing, so take everything I say with a grain of salt as it might change in the coming months. As of right now, the Hive is both an interesting and unique blend of RPG and RTS that does many things right but is unfortunately hampered by a complete lack of difficulty. The Hive is a single player only game and as such relies on the strength of its campaign to carry you through, and for the most part it does a good job at it. The story is told through short voice acted cutscenes that can sometimes drag on for far too long but are always enjoyable to listen to because the voice acting is genuinely impressive. Your insectoid advisor will do the majority of the narration throughout the game, and since he sounds like the Zerg Overmind from StarCraft 1, the whole experience is much more immersive than you might expect. What I don't like is how the Hive's intro cinematic sets up this grand story about humanity's flight from Earth due to an impending catastrophe, and then references it exactly once in the entirety of the campaign. I understand the need for mystery, but I would prefer it if the introduction dealt with the emergence of the Hive you spend the entire game with rather than to set up a tiny bit of background lore. As for the story itself, it is a bit of a mixed bag, because while you have an interesting mystery backed up with some great voice acting, the writing tends to be really cheesy and the mission objectives uninspired. Even though I'm interested to see how the story will end, I do believe the developers need to go back and either add some more clues or just explain our motivations better, because I've destroyed entire civilizations while having only the faintest idea why I'm doing so. While the story might be lackluster at parts, the presentation is simply great throughout the campaign. Both the environment and the units are very pretty to look at and more importantly filled with vast amounts of little details that aren't relevant on their own but add a lot to the ambience and atmosphere of the world the Hive inhabits. The campaign currently features 9 of the 10 planned missions and each one will task you with building up a base, raising an army and then either obliterating everything in your path or solving some simplistic puzzles while obliterating everything in your path. All of that starts with a single lonesome drone on whose back the entire empire will be built. And speaking of empires, the base building and resource management in the Hive is very reminiscent of the system found in the Age of Empires series. You have to worry about food, which lets you spawn various alien critters, minerals which go towards construction, and the population cap which attempts, but fails at ensuring you can't just create a death ball and roll over your enemies. You can gather large amounts of food slowly through fishing or go for the faster but less sustainable method of hunting down poor innocent turtles and butchering them for meat. While it presents an interesting tactical choice, the campaign was unfortunately so easy I always hunted down turtles to extinction in order to speed up construction, and then simply won from there without facing the consequences of having an unsustainable economy. I'm sure there's a political joke in there somewhere, but let's not dwell on it. One of the most satisfying parts of the base building experience is how your little worker drones gather resources. You can clearly see them use their pincers to catch fish, throw it behind them and then continue on with their work, as small pillbugs scoot over to collect the produce in order to store it in ever-increasing piles near the main hive. It is a small detail, but the constant buzz of activity in your base makes it feel like you're at the head of a ravenous swarm rather than simply watching a number increase. The process of building up your base is also a very satisfying one, but it does suffer from being far too slow. There are only a couple of buildings in the Hive and it is very easy to realize what the optimal build order is, so you will start every single game the exact same way, and since you always begin with exactly one worker drone, the whole procedure tends to take a while. The way I would address this issue is by providing a more diverse starting point, so one mission begins with an entire base, another with a bunch of units that need to conquer a food-rich area, and so forth. Thankfully, the same doesn't apply to the squads of insectoid warriors you can spawn, because once you get your economy rolling, the units are cheap and easy to produce. Most importantly, due to their varying sizes and appearances, combined with the sheer number of units you can have, the Hive really does give off the impression that you're guiding an unstoppable force across the battlefield. Which is exactly where my main gripe with the Hive lies. You are nigh unstoppable. The majority of the problem lies with the enemy AI, or the complete lack of thereof. Throughout the entire 9-mission campaign, I think there are only 2 maps in total where you actually get attacked, and those attacks are so weak that 2 cheap turrets can completely negate them. The worst thing is that the Hive does nothing to prepare players for these sort of scenarios. It simply goes from 3 mind-numbingly easy missions at the start of the game to one that just has you rushed down by 20 enemy units without any indication that such a thing might happen. Besides the strange difficulty spike in Mission 4, there is nothing else to challenge you in the Hive, as you have infinite time to grow your insatiable army. And with no increasingly stronger enemy attacks to whittle down your troops, every mission starts to feel exactly the same. It also doesn't help that the Hive for some reason restricts how many of each unit type you can build, which even further homogenizes every single mission. But even if you had a much smaller army, the enemy AI is still extremely exploitable and rather dumb. When attacking enemy bases filled with hordes of units, you don't have to worry about fighting them all at once, no. Instead, the AI will only send a couple of the closest units at you while the rest twiddle their thumbs and wait to be eaten like good little baddies. This is extremely unfortunate, as all the different unit archetypes you have along with their unique abilities simply beg to be used in cool ways, but all you will really do is attack move across the map, because there is simply no point in doing anything else. There is a glimmer of hope that this might get fixed in the future, because the Hive has systems in place that are seemingly made for a much harder game. For example, all of your units have a retreat button which forces them to run back to the nearest Hive at increased speed, which is completely irrelevant for an easy game, but if Hive ever becomes tough, such an option becomes invaluable when it comes to saving resources, which leads me to believe that the difficulty system might not yet be implemented. But the biggest indicators of things to come are the inventory and unit promotion systems, which can greatly increase a squad's efficiency. The way promotions work is pretty simple. By participating in battles and killing enemy units, your squads will gain experience, and once that experience reaches a certain threshold, you will increase in rank and stats. Pretty simple. On its own, this isn't very exciting, but when combined with the RPG equipment system the Hive has, it becomes a great way to customize your armies, even if it's a very slight difference. There are plenty of slots for you to put that equipment in, so even though you can retrieve gear from dead units, you will never have a fully decked out army, and that is pretty cool because only having a couple of powerful veteran units makes them feel special and worth taking care of. The second great thing about the equipment system is that it encourages exploration, since you can find gear and corpses of your enemies in treasure chests or even in mini-bosses scattered throughout the maps. Or at least that is the idea, but with no fog of war, that is areas of the map that obscure vision until fully explored, you can pinpoint where exactly the treasure chests are and just beeline for them while completely ignoring all the optional enemies and areas sprinkled across the maps. This is such an obvious problem that I can't imagine it won't get fixed by the time the Hive leaves early access, but it is an important thing to note regardless. And the final, small, but incredibly annoying issue is the fact that treasure chests can sometimes contain absolutely nothing. You can fight through hordes of enemies, including a mini-boss, in order to reach a sparkling chest surrounded by gold and then gain absolutely flipping nothing out of it. I love loot-based games, so to have the Hive tease me like this, only to pull the carrot away as soon as I reach it, is a bit of a cruel joke, I must admit. The Hive is buzzing with good ideas and real potential, but as of right now, it is most definitely unfinished and far too easy to be enjoyable once the initial novelty and sleek visuals stop impressing you. Despite loving parts of it, I cannot recommend you grab the Hive in its state right now, because for a real-time strategy game, there is very little strategy involved but a lot of real time to waste. However, if the AI ever gets fixed, do not hesitate to give the Hive a second chance, because it is by no means a bad game, just an unfinished one. Thank you guys for listening, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please let me know, and if you'd like to see more, you can either subscribe here, or check out the website linked down below. That one tends to be updated more frequently. With all of that said, I hope you have a nice day, and I will see you soon. See ya!